If you had to pick the greatest villain of all time, who would you pick? Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Darth Vader, Joker, vegetables when it comes to Rod Wave. And although those are all valid answers, they're wrong. The title of greatest villain belongs to Zoom. Zoom is villain perfected. So let's talk about it. We start off seeing Iris and Linda, Barry's side pieces. And y'all know what's crazy? Some of y'all were in my comments saying Iris isn't a baddie. What is wrong with you? Hey, I don't mind though. I'll keep her to myself. She's very gorgeous to me. Linda starts going home, but then... Nah, bro. I knew I was sensing aura, but I didn't know from where. And then Zoom gets close and personal before snatching her away. We check on Team Flash, and they get word that Zoom is on the roof. And Barry pulls up with the swiftness, and then we see Zoom irradiating electricity while holding Barry's side piece. And he starts to dangle her while looking Flash dead in his eyes. And then he drops her. But Barry clutches up, saving Linda. And Linda starts telling Barry not to fight Zoom because he's a monster. Bro, all he did was take you on a jog and skydiving. That sounds fun to me, is what I imagine Barry was thinking. Zoom pulls up, and bro, my toes were clenched watching this. Zoom's aura is unmatched. Forget about Gojo and Jinwoo song. Barry starts running around the building, but Zoom is just staring at him, unfazed. But then Barry throws a lightning bolt, and if y'all thought I was glazing earlier, I haven't even started. Zoom jumps up, catches the lightning bolt, and chucks it at Barry. Even Team Flash was glazing. Flash gets up and asks Zoom what he wants. And Barry starts hitting the dash, but Zoom is not gonna let him get away. And these boys start brawling mid-air. Barry drops the serum, but Zoom catches it, and he injects it into Barry, and proceeds to crash land on top of him. Zoom picks Barry up, hits him with it right, and proceeds to start piecing Barry up. Wells has to clear shots, but even he shook. And you know what's crazy? He was the main one hyping Barry up, telling Barry that he could defeat Zoom. And as you can see, that's not the case. And then Zoom proceeds to blow Barry's back out. Wells finally fires a shot, but Zoom catches the bullet and stabs it into Barry. And now you are about to witness one of the greatest moments in villain history. Zoom snatches Barry and starts hitting the dash, taking him to the news station where the love of his life works. And the reporters instantly turn on the live stream, and then Zoom starts talking that talk. Look at your symbol of peace. As he lifts Barry up, this man is no god. He is nothing. What'd you say, Zoom?
He is nothing.
Let him know. And then Zoom books it out of there, taking Barry to the police station. And this man is holding Flash like a trophy. This is how I'm gonna be moving when I get my YouTube plaques. And Zoom pulled up just to let them know their symbol of peace is no more. And the cops start busting, but Zoom catches all the bullets and then hits the dash. And what's crazy about this, he didn't have to catch the bullets. He could have just left, but he wanted to leave a feeling of despair within the cops. And look at how Zoom is ragdolling Barry. The cameraman is a hoe. Why are you getting the best angles of my downfall? And then Zoom pulls up to Barry's HQ. And bro, I'm shivering just thinking about what Zoom says.
You thought you could defeat me with this?
And bro, I'll say it again. What makes this such a great line is the fact that Zoom is not trying to be disrespectful. He's legit confused. And then Zoom lifts Barry up and stabs him in the gut. Bro, look at Barry's face. In no other fight has Barry's face looked like this. But then the plot armor comes in and Cisco shoots Zoom, causing him to hit the dash. But let's fast forward a bit and we see Zoom chasing Wells. And this man Zoom is running off the walls, smacks the gun out of Wells' hand, picks him up by his throat, and says,
Merry Christmas.
Cinema! What more do you need to see? This man is the greatest villain of all time. I dare say he's villain personified. Wells and Zoom end up meeting in secret, and Wells figured out Zoom's game plan. He wants to make Barry stronger. He wants to make Barry faster so he can steal it. But in order for that to happen, he needs Wells' help. So he lets Wells see his daughter. They're hugging, embracing. They never want to be separate. And just like that, the choice was clear. Wells will help Zoom steal the Flash's speed. Fast forward a bit, and guess what Wells brought Zoom? Zoom injects it into himself, and this man starts oozing energy. And Wells says, if you want more, give me my daughter back. You see, Wells, that's what you don't understand. I don't need to kill your daughter. I can torture her, bring her to the edge of death, and do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next. And peep the look of disrespect. He really can't believe Wells tried it. Fast forward a bit, and Barry is noticing that he's moving slower. And after hearing Barry talk about how he's not fast enough, Wells comes clean and admits to stealing Barry's speed, and he even admits that he gave it to Zoom. And then Joe punches him in the face and throws him into a cell. And long story short, Barry is the only one that understands why Wells did what he did and says they gotta help him. Fast forward a bit, and we take a trip to Earth 2, and we see Cisco put up on Killer Frost and Human Torch. But then Reverb comes walking out, calling himself a god, and he starts playing with Zoom's name, saying that Zoom is not in control. And he tries to recruit Cisco, but to his surprise, Cisco calls up Barry, and Barry knocks everyone down. But he's gonna regret doing that because Human Torch gets up and he starts firing shots at Barry. Hey, real quick, I want to make sure you guys understood that joke. Firing shots at Barry, Barry is weaving the shots, but Reverb comes from the back and he blasts Barry, knocking him down. And then he punches Cisco, and then these boys start jumping Barry and they're trying to kill him, but that goes against Zoom's orders. If Zoom finds out what they're doing, you know what he's gonna do. And then he pulls up on Reverb, and all of a sudden, all that God talk is nowhere to be found. Zoom points at Barry and says,
Does this look unharmed to you?
Come on, Zoom. He's a speedster. He heals fast. hand through the chest. I guess now we can call Zoom a God Slayer. Zoom runs to Barry and takes him away. And we see he put Barry in his cage, the same place where Wells' daughter is. And Barry tells her he's gonna get her out of here. Bro, this man Zoom is menacing. Look at how he got Jessie looking. You probably wouldn't even believe me if I said she was a baddie. And bro, I really love this next part. Zoom pulls up to Earth 2 Star Labs and the security pulls up on him saying, do not move. And peep the look back. Zoom does not take these mall cops seriously and he destroys them with the swiftness. And Zoom came here looking for Wells, but all's well doesn't end well because Zoom does not find them. We see Barry and he's talking to this masked guy through Knox, but then Zoom pulls up telling mans to stop. And then he turns his sights to Barry and he walks into Barry's cell, gripping Barry by his throat and then starts beating him up. And bro, this is a massacre. The masked guy is watching in disappointment as Zoom continues to beat the life out of Barry. And I'm not going to cover the rest of this because it's boring. But all you gotta know is everyone escapes besides the masked guy. But Barry did promise to come back for him. Fast forward a bit and the team finds out Zoom's identity, and the way all the puzzles came together was so good to see. And they set up a trap for Zoom. Barry brings Zoom to Star Labs, and dog, this trap was perfect. A picture of Zoom's father, the man who made him watch him murder his mother. And Barry starts piecing up Zoom, but Zoom collects his marbles, and boom, the woman murdered by his father. And with Zoom distracted, Barry puts a device on his leg and then removes his drip and pushes him down just because. And Zoom gives Barry props, saying this plan was magnificent. But then he starts tweaking, talking about some you can't lock up the darkness. Had Barry
You can't lock up the darkness.
Zoom removes the device and hits the dash. Barry goes home and the house is trashed, and then they see a note saying
Your speed for Wally.
fast forward and they agree on the deal, and Zoom for the first time removes his mask in front of Team Flash. And before they start the procedure, Joe asks Zoom what was his motive. Why was he pretending to be a hero?
To give people hope, Detective. Hope. So I can rip it away from them.
Bro, they do not make villains like this no more. Barry's reaction says it all. Bro, I challenge you to name one villain better than Zoom. Spoiler, you can't. This man is one of a kind. And now it's time. Fast forward, Zoom injects Barry's speed into him, and this man starts floating on the moon. He runs to Barry and pins him to a wall, and he was gonna kill him, but he decided to take Caitlyn instead. But let's fast forward. The team tries to help Barry get his speed back, and it goes terribly wrong and ends up killing him. Zoom pulls up, calls them idiots, and then dips. But long story short, Barry wasn't dead. He was chilling in the Speed Force, but he's back now. Fast forward, and Barry's having a meal with the family, and he finally shoots his shot with Iris, but then Cisco gets a vibe, seeing the world get destroyed. And then Zoom pulls up, grabbing Barry's father, and he books it, causing Barry to follow. And dog, fasten your seatbelt because it's about to get crazy. Zoom takes Barry to his old home, the home where the Reverse Flash killed his mother, and Barry starts begging Zoom to let his dad go, even offering up his own life instead. But Zoom wants to prove they're the same, and he stabs Barry's father straight through the heart. Barry screams in agony and starts begging his dad to stay alive, and Zoom is just watching. Barry, with pure passionate anger, puts Jay up against a wall, but Zoom breaks free, and he hits the dash, and Flash chases him. And as Zoom is running, a time remnant pops up next to him. They look at each other and go their separate ways. Flash finds Zoom and hits him with a slide tackle, then hits him with a knee, left hook, and removes the drip. He picks Zoom up, starts vibrating his hand, and bro, like I said, one of a kind. This man offed himself twice for the sake of his goal, and then he hits the dash. Fast forward, Cisco vibes Barry to Zoom, and Barry agrees to race him. The team pulls up to the spot, and so does Zoom. Barry and Zoom both mask up and get to running, but Barry creates a time remnant. Barry leaves to go free Joe, while the time remnant keeps running, but Zoom peeps this, and he tackles Barry, and he's not even mad, because he got what he wanted, or at least he thought. Zoom and Barry start throwing hands, but the remnant is still running, giving it his all to stop the machine, and ultimately, he does, but at the cost of his life. Back to Barry and Zoom. Barry is piecing mans up, flips Zoom into the air, and hits him with the people's elbow. Barry pins Zoom down, but he's not gonna kill him because two time race pull up and they attack Zoom. And safe to say, he does not survive this, and this is how the story ends. But y'all know what's crazy? Barry's remnant died, saving the multiverse, and Barry just continues his happy little life, and it would have stayed that way. But Barry decided to play God. Barry Allen, the fastest man alive. But what is the man to a god? We'll find out as we see Barry go against Savitar, the god of speed. So let's talk about it. We start off seeing Wally, and he's pulling up to Savitar's lair, and he gets greeted by LTG's Covenant. Wally walks up, and Alchemy starts offering Wally super speed. And I gotta keep it a buck. If some random cloaked figure who's been messing with my head offers me super speed, I'ma take it. Even if there's a 99% chance I die, that's the risk I'm willing to take. But Wally isn't like me, and he calls in his team. Barry pulls up, and he locks up all the small fry. But then Alchemy starts flexing this rock that shoots Ki Blast. What type of VVS is that? And then Alchemy kicks Barry, turning mans into a mop. Got him sliding on the pavement. Barry gets up, sit down, and Alchemy starts Ki Blast spamming. I can't stand people who play like this. Lucky for Barry though, Joe has him covered, and he shoots Alchemy, and they start interrogating him. But then we hear rumbling, and flashes start zooming across the room, but no one else can see it besides Barry. And we see this Flash starts freeing the Covenant, and then grabs his cup by his neck and turns mans into a jelly toad and throws him to the ground. Barry starts telling everyone to leave, but Savitar is moving with a purpose. Not even Barry can keep up, and actually, Barry gets big-bodied, got mans looking like Tokamitsu. And with all this going on, Wally starts hearing a voice that's coming from a A rock? Wally goes to grab it and gets trapped in this cocoon type thing, and then Barry gets grabbed and we get our first look at Savitar, the god of speed. And this man tells Barry, you may serve the Speed Force.
But I rule it.
Ooh, that's a bar. We see Joe and he... Wait, there's no way. He pulls a Glock out on Savitar. Now, don't get me wrong, death before dishonor. But what's the game plan here? Apparently, it's spray and pray. But obviously, that does nothing. But it does give Savitar an idea. And he tells Barry,
Let's go for a run.
and he books it out of there, dragging Barry by his dome. Barry, you have to get your weight up. Savitar slams Barry to the ground, hits him with a double fist. He cocked them hoes all the way back. It is not that serious. And then hits Barry with a 1-2. But it's not over. Savitar grabs Barry by his neck and throws him like an Olympian. Got man's rolling through the... You thought I was done? Nah, bro. Savitar hates this man. And then he throws Barry to this waterfront. Barry runs at Savitar, but Savitar runs a circle around this man. And I'm not even exaggerating. He actually ran a whole circle around this man just to punch him. And he doesn't even let Flash hit the ground before throwing a kick that sends Flash flying. Get up. Savitar punches Flash. Flick me up for the gram real quick. And then hits Flash with the liver shot. Hey, you still alive down there? Grips the back of the neck, pulls a blade out, and puts it to Barry's throat. And then the plot armor comes in. As you can see, Cisco and Caitlin pull up, and for some reason, he starts roaring. And then Caitlin freezes him. Obviously, that couldn't hold him. He's Savitar, but he does take his leave. And believe it or not, this was actually the best outcome, considering what's about to happen next. We see Barry and his team, and they end up getting the jump on Savitar's location. But this time, Barry has backup. Jay Garrick, the Unk Flash, some may call him. Barry and Jay pull up, but so does Savitar. Barry says they gotta jump him, but Jay says he can handle this. He must have a trick up his... Nah, bro. Getting face grabbed, not even a second into the fight, is insane. And then Savitar hits the dash, and he's giving Jay that Barry treatment. Throws Jay into the dirt just to stay in his fit. Immediately catches him, and I don't know how that helmet's still on, but he's gonna need it. Savitar throws Vance into a wall, admires his work, and then takes him on another run, ragdolling Unk by his ankle, hitting him into a garbage can, throws him into a wall, hits an up smash, alley-ooping mans, catches his own lob, and dunks it into a crate. But it's not over. Savitar grabs Jay and punches him off the building, and that helmet finally comes off. But Jay is not giving up. He starts trying to stand. Nah, bro, that's crazy. I know Jay's heart dropped seeing that. This must be how Beyonce feels, waking up next to Jay-Z. Horrified, Garrick tries to run, sit down, and Savitar's about to kill him, but Barry clutches up and seals Savitar. But this is not the end, because we fast forward a little bit, and the box is playing mind games on Cisco, causing him to see his dead brother, and Dante convinces Cisco to open the box, and then Savitar appears. Barry pulls up, and immediately gets grabbed by Savitar, and dog. This man, Savitar, starts using Barry as a human volleyball. The team can't believe it, but when one man falls, another man shines. And Wally steps up to the plate. He pulls up, dropping some terrible one-liners. You can tell he's new to this. Wally runs up, gets grabbed by the back of his hoodie, and thrown into Barry. We see Caitlin, and she convinces Cisco to close the box. But let's fast forward a little bit, and we see the stone is gone, and so is Wally. We check on Wally, and Savitar pulls up on him, and he starts little boying Wally, holding him on the shoulders and all. But Wally says, "Get your filthy hands off me!" And Wally begins to run, creating a portal to the Speed Force, and that's where he throws the stone. But Wally starts getting sucked in. Barry pulls up, and Wally starts begging for his help. And you know it's serious when the drip starts getting ripped, torn to shreds. Joe and Iris are watching in disbelief, and Barry is just standing in awe, knowing there's nothing he can do. And then the portal closes, but it opens back up, and Savitar comes through, and he's ecstatic. He's finally free, and can no longer be sealed by a rock. And then Barry asks him what happened to Wally. He's in the Speed Force, currently watching his most traumatic moments in life on replay. Hey, but don't blame me. He's just another victim Barry Allen failed to save. And this heats Barry up. Savitar and Barry both clash at each other. Savitar grips the throat. Barry's gripping the face. I don't know how Savitar allowed that. The collision pushes both Savitar and Barry back. And Savitar hits the dash, leading Barry to this abandoned alley. And Barry tells Savitar he's gonna kill him.
Stop it! You know how that ends.
You're a good guy, Barry. You're a big old cuddly bear. Even if you could, you wouldn't kill me. Caught him lacking. But Barry weaves the punch. Barry runs in, punching Savitar, and immediately runs away. But Savitar is not gonna let that slide, and he spins the block. Savitar jumps down in front of Barry, but all that ore farming is gonna cost him. Flash gets up and punches Savitar. Gotman's hitting a 180, and Barry is looking at him in disappointment. Savitar tries regaining some aura, but Barry grabs his arm and makes man start choking himself. Nah, Savitar, you can't be calling yourself a god and be in this position. But Barry made one big mistake. He tried to unmask Savitar. In other words, he was messing with the drip, and Savitar makes him pay by stabbing him. And you remember all those times where Savitar didn't kill Barry? There was actually a reason behind that. He wants Barry alive so he can watch Iris die. And after hearing that, Barry starts vibrating his hand, and he cuts Savitar's arm, and Savitar roars at the camera, and then he takes his leave. And you're probably wondering, why is Savitar moving much slower? Well, me too. I read something that said it's because he's not getting energy from the Speed Force anymore, but I'm not sure. If you know, let us know in the comments. But back to Barry, he's chilling with the family, but then Joel says, "Love's the only thing we got in this world. Without it, nothing really matters. And then Barry starts thinking, and he figures out who Savitar is. Barry leaves the crib, and I don't know where he went, but he starts screaming for Savitar, and Savitar ducks no fade. You call him out, he's gonna show up. And then Barry starts talking Savitar down, explaining how he figured it out. And then finally, Barry reveals Savitar's identity. Savitar is Barry Allen. And then he hops out the suit. The drip is looking good. The face, not so much. Now, let me break this down for you real quick. Savitar is a time remnant that was shunned by Barry, Joe, Wally, Cisco, everyone from his time. And he's here for revenge. Savitar tries walking away, but Barry runs up and uppercuts him, sending man straight to the ground. And then Barry puts Savitar in an Oliver Queen headlock. But one thing Barry didn't consider is that Savitar's suit is cooler than his. Got Barry shook, and he gets thrown like a little boy. Savitar jumps in his suit, and both these boys start running in a circle. And then finally, they charge at each other, shooting lightning that repels both of them back. Barry gets up and Savitar is gone. But let's fast forward a little bit. Barry just finished teaming up with Captain Cold, and they stole a device that will help defeat Savitar. Barry runs to Star Labs and lets his team know the good news. Wait guys, where's Iris? Iris is safely stashed away on Earth 2 somewhere Savitar will never find her. This man Savitar was pretending to be Barry. Well, not really pretending since he is Barry, but like, you get it. Savitar starts making his way to Earth 2, and we see Joe and the team get armed and ready. Savitar pulls up. Bro, ain't no way. This man made a pit stop just to get his drip. I'm not even mad at it. Wally runs up, punching Savitar, but that hit did reverse damage. Got Wally staring in disbelief. Savitar starts swinging, gets a hold of Wally, uppercuts man to the ceiling, and what comes up must come down. Savitar catches Wally and snaps Wally's leg. Joe and Wells start busting, and obviously it does nothing. He's Savitar, the god of speed. But Savitar powers down the suit, and Flash jumps behind Iris. If you aim that gun at me, your daughter is not gonna have a dad. Iris starts pleading, begging Savitar not to kill them. I'm not gonna kill them yet. They gotta watch you die first. And then Savitar grabs Iris and hits the dash. Barry gets back, and he hears the news, but he's surprisingly calm, and they start planning on how to defeat Savitar. They know where Savitar will be, and they know when he will be there. And to make matters better, the weapon is complete. Fast forward a bit, Barry pulls up to the location. Savitar arrives, Iris in hand, tears in her eyes. Savitar drops Iris and tells Barry put the dukes up, but just like a YN, Barry is not here to throw hands, and he grabs the stick. But Savitar is weaving all the shots, but he can only weave for so long before Barry catches him lacking. Savitar gets brought down to a knee. Hope begins to hit Iris's face. Barry is feeling himself, but then Savitar stands, blowing the energy off of him. The hope they once had has turned into despair. Savitar grabs Iris. Barry, with no other option, starts begging. Savitar brings out a knife and stabs Iris straight through her chest, and then hits the dash, leaving Barry to wallow in pain. And this is how the story ends. We all know the god of speed, Savitar, but have you heard of Godspeed? A man who they compare to the reverse Flash, a man who started a speedster civil war. So let's talk about it. We start off seeing a white Flash, and then we see two Godspeeds, and they're speaking to each other, but they aren't speaking English. Here's what it sounds like. We check on Barry, and he's checking on Iris's pregnancy test, but then we hear rumbling, and the windows shatter. But lucky for Cecile, Barry protected her. Barry pulls up on his team, and he finds out Godspeed is on the run. And just in case this is important later, Godspeed is an artificial speedster, and his motive is that he wants organic speed. The team is checking the radar, and the Godspeeds disappear. We check on Caitlin, and she's about to perform surgery, but then the alarm goes off. Flash pulls up on Chester to get the MO, and it's Godspeed back on the loose. Flash hits the dash, pulling up on Godspeed, and Flash starts calling this man a fraud, saying he's not nothing but an off-brand shadow clone, to which Godspeed responds, but Chester has a translator, and we find out what the Godspeed said. I have him. And then Flash realizes this was a trap, and now he's surrounded by 6 Godspeeds, and with his back against the wall, there's only 2 options, fight or flight.
I'm out. He's a pussy.
And Barry starts booking it, telling Chester to drop the force field, and after some hesitation, Chester does it, and Flash slides in real smooth like at the last second, just barely making it through, as the Godspeeds watch from outside the club. But I have a question. What if Chester didn't hesitate, and Barry didn't make it inside? What was his game plan? Die? The Godspeeds try to phase through, but no dice. Break the walls down! And basically what the Godspeed said was to break the walls down like Chris Jericho, and the force field health is depleting. Flash pulls up on Chester, and he's asking if there's a way out, but that's not an option, because Caitlin is still doing surgery. We check on the Godspeeds, and hold on, I know y'all can move faster than that. These boys aren't trying to get in for real. Back to Barry and Chester. Chester came up with a plan, and bro, it was so stupid. Do you want to know what the plan was? Be unpredictable. And Barry's looking at Chester like he just solved cancer. We check on Caitlin, and she's still locked in, and the baddie's freaking out, but Caitlin is not gonna let that ruin her focus. We check on Killer Frost, and she frees this guy, and asks for his help defeating the Godspeeds. Back to Barry and Chester. Chester elaborates on his plan, which is to use the Godspeed voices against them. Now that's what you call a game plan, but it's gonna take 4 minutes to complete, and sadly, I don't think they have 4 minutes, because the Godspeeds start using using the sonic wave attack, and it shuts the barrier down, and the Godspeeds couldn't wait to get in there. One Godspeed pulls up on the Flash, talking about some, "You're gonna die!" And after hearing that, Flash tells Chester to hit the dash, and you don't gotta tell him twice. He books it into Thawne's room. Back to the Flash. These boys are boxing, going hit for hit, run on the walls, hold this kick, and then hits Barry, sending him flying, and peep the form. That follow through is immaculate, and before Flash can even hit the ground, Godspeed pulls up punching man's, but Barry's tired of being a punching bag. He runs in a circle throwing lightning, and then Barry runs on the walls just to get his get back from earlier. We check on Killer Frost, and 2 Godspeeds pull up, and her and Mans were probably gonna die, but Chester came in clutch and starts playing the audio through Star Labs, and it's working to perfection, leaving Godspeed wide open for Flash to start piecing Mans up, and then Flash cocks that fist all the way back and punches Godspeed in the chest, moving him a solid 2 feet. Godspeed loads up a haymaker, but Flash hits a football slide, blocks the punch, grabs the arm, putting his filthy hands on the drip, spins Godspeed around just to sock him. But just like a sock, Godspeed has that comeback in him. Godspeed punches Flash, turning Mans into a bird as he crashes to the floor. We check on Killer Frost, and these boys are piecing the Godspeeds up, even hitting a tag team combo. But wasn't there 6? 1's with the Flash, and 2 are here. Where's the other 3? Back to the Flash. He gets up and throws lightning at Godspeed, but then we see this Godspeed walking, and he breaks into Thawne's room, somehow sending Chester flying. And this Godspeed must be the smart one, because he stops the audio, and with no more distractions, we see Chester about to get clapped. Killer Frost and bro got hit with lightning, and the final 2 Godspeeds pull up on Flash. And now once again, Barry has 2 choices: fight or flight. And he takes out all 3 Godspeeds. Bro, those last 2 Godspeeds are frauds. They gotta just be normal people. But then this Godspeed says, "Chase the Flash!" And all the Godspeeds pull up, following Flash, moving all across the city. And then they run past Flash and hit him with a combined lightning attack. And once again, they have Flash surrounded, and they start stealing his speed. Flash is in agony, but then he looks up and sees 6 more Godspeeds. And they attack the other Godspeeds, saving the Flash in the process. And they start brawling. This Godspeed was trying to ore farm, but got pushed out the way. And then bro throws lightning, getting himself a 2-piece. And Flash is watching in disbelief as the brawl comes to an end, as these 2 Godspeeds clash fists, causing all the Godspeeds to disappear. Back to Caitlin. The surgery was a success. Barry goes home and turns on the news, and the Godspeeds are back, terrorizing the city. But then Nora pulls up, begging for help, but Barry is choking, so he can't respond. And then Nora disappears, and we find out that was all a dream, except for the Godspeed part. They're actually back. Flash pulls up to Star Labs, and apparently he just finished getting jumped, but was saved by the Godspeeds disappearing. Caitlin patches Barry up, and this man currently has 6 broken ribs and is internally bleeding. Bro, CW could have gave us the ultimate jumping. Barry tells Caitlin about his Nora dream, and Caitlin is just nodding her head, adding nothing of value. If only there was someone that became someone else. If only there was someone who became something else.
Maybe I can help with that.
Diggle pulls up. Bro, this is like a breath of fresh air, although he is practically useless against speedsters. But having him here boosted morale, and Diggle has a present for them, and his 2 Masca tools. And then Chester pulls up glazing.
The heart and soul of Team Arrow.
Bro, is this what I sound like? But back to the doohickey, it's basically a freeze attack with the response time of a picosecond. So now the goal is capture a Godspeed and bring him back for interrogation. We check on Caitlin, and she officially saved the baddie and leaves the room so the sisters can catch up. But the baddie starts packing and shows her sister this document, and apparently she plans on going on a revenge tour and asks her sister to join her. But the baddie says that's stupid. There's a whole Godspeed civil war. Once we handle this, then we'll spin the block. But the baddie doesn't agree and decides to go on this journey alone. We see the Flash zooming across the city, and he tells Chester, "Play that heat." And like a moth to a flame, one of the Godspeeds take the bait, and he's on Flash's tail. Wait, bro, hold up. How are you wearing a mask? But I can perfectly see how angry you are. Flash keeps running, and then we see the trap laid out, and Flash faces through the ground, leaving the Godspeed dumbfounded and caught in the trap. They bring him back to base, and he hasn't said a word. Cecile tries using her powers that she doesn't deserve on him, but all she can feel is hatred and determination. And the Godspeed was trying to call for help, but the baddie is sending interference. But now we go to the Flash, and he's trying to talk to the Godspeed, but he came to the conclusion the Godspeeds must not speak his language. So Flash goes to get a translator.
A translation will not be necessary.
Bro, they could have spoke the whole time, and the Godspeed even knows Barry's identity. And with the cat out the bag, Barry takes out the drip and asks Godspeed, "Why talk now? You had Joshua doing those stupid impressions for no reason." And basically, Godspeed answered the question through parables and tries to recruit Barry to help them achieve their goal.
To live.
And then Godspeed drops a cold one-liner.
We did not ask to be born, but we do ask not to die.
Fire the paper with that line. And just for your information, this Godspeed is part of the crew that saved Barry, and what his side wants is to live, while the others want to serve August Hart. And Flash asks him, if you guys are from the future, why bring the war here? And that's because that's where the prime August Hart is, and every Godspeed is searching for him. And once again, Godspeed asks Flash to join him, but Flash asks Godspeed, what happens when we find August Hart? We're gonna kill him, and y'all know Barry, he doesn't kill, so he rejects rejects the offer and walks away. And then the monitor starts going crazy and Godspeed breaks free, smashing the trap device. Barry tries swinging, but gets blocked and chokeslammed.
If you are not an ally, you are an enemy.
That's a bar. And starts hitting Flash with a sonic wave. But then the baddie pulls up, shooting Godspeed. And after one hit, he hit the dash. And then the team groups up and find out how Godspeed escaped. And that's because he's not a meta, he's an artificial speedster. And the whole time they thought they were interrogating him, he was interrogating them. Barry and Diggle have a one-on-one chat, and Diggle inspires Barry to go to the future. Barry goes to let Cecile know, and Cecile shows Barry Nora's notebook that Iris gave to her for some reason. And they find information on August's heart. So here's the plan. Barry goes to the future, and Cecile and Diggle go heart hunting. But on their way out, Diggle starts having migraines. And although Cecile can see the pain that Diggle's in, she had to feel it for herself. And now she's in the same pain. Plays stupid games, wins stupid prizes. But Diggle recovers, and they continue on the mission. We check on Flash, and he's preparing to go to 2049 to make sure his family is safe. But in his travels, he sees 6 Godspeeds, and they fire lightning that Barry could have dodged, but he chose not to, knocking Flash somewhere random. And he sees LTG, and LTG tells Flash what's going on. The Godspeeds are feeding off the Speed Force, but Barry ignores all that because he remembered LTG can control time, and he asked LTG to take him to 2049, but LTG says,
Pretty busy right now.
What are you doing? What?
Keeping me safe.
and then Iris comes out, and she's in pain, and LTG was the one keeping her stable. And after telling the Flash what's going on, LTG and Iris gotta hit the dash.
Iris, I love you.
Nah, LTG, you're flawed for that. You couldn't let Barry get off one more syllable? Back to Godspeed, he's holding this grown man by his collar. Bro, you may be fast, but I refuse to be done like this. But Diggle comes out, shooting Godspeed with nanites, courtesy of Ray Palmer. And he starts piecing Godspeed up, sending mans to the ground. But then the headaches come back, and Diggle's constantly hearing the word, worlds away, worlds away, worlds away. And unfortunately for Diggle, Godspeed is about to dig Diggle a hole. Do you see what I did there? Dig Diggle a hole? Like he's gonna put him in the grave, because his name is Diggle, and you gotta like dig a grave. But Killer Frost comes to the rescue. But now let's check on the baddie. We see she's on a mission of her own, and she sees something horrific. But before we find out what she saw, we go back to Flash, and he gets teleported right behind Caitlyn. And then Barry tells them Iris is in danger. Back to the baddie, she's walking past a whole bunch of corpses and finds her sister barely alive. And with her last few words, she starts blaming her sister. Yeah, okay. And then her body goes out in a flame of fire. I can't lie, that was hard, but it left the baddie in pain. Seeing her sister's life end right in front of her, it's truly insane. But back to Diggle, the team finds August's heart, and they bring him to the lab, and they plan on doing some science stuff to his brain. But we have some bad news. Diggle is taking his leave. It was good having him for the ride. We see Caitlyn getting ready to inject heart, and he starts tweaking, but he finally remembers his name, and obviously it's August Hart. But that's all he remembers due to his memory loss being so severe. We take a look at Barry, and he's moping, but then Nora pulls up, telling Barry everything will be okay. And then Bart pulls up, leaving Barry in shock. But let's take a trip to the past real quick. Well, also the future. We see Godspeed running, talking to himself. And once my ascension is complete, I will bow before the might of Godspeed. Oh nah, that's embarrassing. Nora hooked man straight out the sky and looked good while doing it, but we can't enjoy her beauty for too long because ain't no way she really put Godspeed to sleep.
Guess you couldn't run away forever, Heart.
Never anger a god, little one.
Bro, say what you want about Godspeed, but you gotta respect his one-liners. And look at Nora, she's laid out on the floor, but even she knows that was a bar. And then Godspeed starts emoting, but Bart comes in, phasing through Godspeed, once again, putting him to the floor. But Nora isn't happy, letting Bart know what he did was dangerous. But while they're arguing, Godspeed phases through the floor, heading to the Flash Museum, and he's running on a treadmill, using it to create a breach. Bro, what a kryptonite. Zoom would just punch one open. But nonetheless, Godspeed goes through, being followed by Nora and Bart. Back to the present, Barry's kids meet up with everyone, and then Chester has an idea, which I did not understand, but it's to create something that will stop Godspeed. And speaking of Godspeed, he just returned, and these boys are boxing with each other. This guy got dropped to the cement, these two idiots clash lightning, and then Flash and his kids pull up. Here's the plan: secure the area, make sure there's no bystanders, and what about the Godspeeds?
Let them kill each other and clean up the mess.
Had Barry stunned, and the Godspeeds felt the bloodlust. They all stop fighting and stare at Team Flash. They really put their beef to the side within seconds. That's actually impressive. Barry, Nora, and Bart split up, but no one follows Barry or Nora. The Godspeeds are all following Bart, saying kill the adversary. Barry tells Bart to spin back, but Bart says, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. But as he says that, he gets struck by a Godspeed, and now he's surrounded. The Godspeeds lift up their hand, and now Bart is in a fight or flight situation, and he... Nah, bro, you're not serious. Out of fight or flight, you chose deer in headlights. Bro, this is pathetic. But Bart gets saved by the bell. And this man, he has the nerve to try to play it off. We saw you, bro. Bart, I didn't want to do this, but we gotta put you on fraud watch. They head back to base, and Barry asks, why did they only follow Bart? And Bart says,
I want to know why every Godspeed out there just tried to kill Bart.
Because he's my thought.
no, no, no. There's no way he just said that. Play it back. I don't believe it.
Because he's my thought.
Before I say anything, let's let this play out. Bart proceeds to call Godspeed his arch nemesis, and Barry says,
You can't just throw his name around without knowing what it means. I know what it means.
Nah, bro, close the schools. This man called Godspeed his Thawne, yet when it came down to fight or flight, you turtle shelled. Barry was in the same situation twice, and he did both fight and flight, and then you have the nerve to hit this Italian maple table. Have some class. And I wasn't gonna say this until later, but the reason he compared Godspeed to Thawne is because he killed Jay Garrick and oh wait, that's it. Like, yeah, that's sad, but there's levels to this. When Barry asked Thawne why did he kill his mother, you know what Thawne said?
Why did you kill my mother? Because I hate you.
Like, bro, come on. Godspeed isn't even Zoom level, but that would be a better comparison. But back to Barry. Barry asked Gideon about Wally, and he's in a deep meditation, so he won't be participating. But then Iris pulls up, and apparently, she was watching everything. And bro, they really believe this Thawne Godspeed nonsense. But then we get a look at Jay, and he got his speed back. He puts on his drip and gets sent flying, and now he's surrounded by 5 Godspeeds, 6. And he puts Jay in a headlock. We check on Flash, and he's trying to bench Bart, to which Bart looks at Nora for help, but she does not back him up. And we see he ran to Joe's house, and this is where they reveal that Godspeed killed Jay. But let's check on the baddie real quick. Also, I just found out her name is Allergy. Allergy was supposed to charge this machine, but she's been slacking, and if you remember what she just seen, then you know why. And then Flash pulls up, and he needs that machine like now, but since it's not ready, Barry charges it himself and hits the dash, and now Barry's in position, and we see Nora leading the Godspeeds. Flash turns on the device, and just like Ring Around the Rosie, they all fall down, but then Nora gets hit, and so does Flash, and Nora is passed out, so Flash jumps in front of her, taking the pain of both Godspeeds. But this guy said make it 3, matter of fact make it 4, and once again Killer Frost comes in clutch, and these boys book it. They get back to base, and the reason the device didn't work is because it needed to be charged by Allergy, not Flash. And then Bart pulls up saying sub me in coach, but he's still benched along with Nora now, but maybe not for long. The alarm goes off, and the Godspeed sent a message saying turn over Bart or we're gonna send Jay to the stars again. If Godspeed does what I think he's gonna do, then I take back everything I said about Bart. Chester finds Godspeed's location, and Bart books it, heading straight to the smoke. And once he arrives, he sees Jay on the floor, and then the Godspeeds come out from the shadows holding Jay Garrick, and they drop him like garbage. And then another Godspeed pulls up behind Bart and starts shocking him. Barry and Nora pull up, and this one Godspeed has Bart in the air, and Nora somehow convinced all 5 Godspeeds to chase her. Bro, that was terrible IQ. 2 max should have been enough. Barry runs at Godspeed, facing through a sonic wave attack, and then faces through the Godspeed and catches Bart. Jay gets up, and all I have to say is, this is your Thawne? What a joke. Nora pulls back up, and so does the Godspeeds. And it's not just the 5. More Godspeeds come to play, and they surround Team Flash. And Flash and Jay are with the smoke, but then a door opens.
I leave Central City for 2 seconds.
And then Cisco freezes the Godspeeds, and they get out of there. Also, Bart is still knocked out. Shocker. And now here's the new plan. Inject Barry into Hart's mind in hopes of finding a way to end the war. They both suit up and get to action. And Barry officially enters Hart's mind, and the true Godspeed shows himself. And Flash starts questioning him, but Hart is spitting out tomfoolery, to which Barry replies,
Tell me what the hell's going on.
Or what?
oh nah, this man's rage baiting. And then he stands, calling himself the living God of Speed. And then he starts disrespecting Flash's kids.
You're gonna leave them alone, I swear.
Are you threatening me, Flash?
Bro, this man's hilarious. And then he tells us his goal, organic speed. And then he kicks Flash out. The team starts talking about what to do, and Nora says give him the speed. But Barry doesn't agree, because Hart being Thawne and yeah, that nonsense. But the family groups up, and we see Barry caught up to Speed Force, and she gives everyone a boost, giving Iris her speed back and healing Bart. We see the Godspeeds fighting each other, and hold on, y'all thought I wouldn't catch that? These two aren't even fighting for real. They're just trying to fit in. But then Bart pulls up, and the violence comes to an end. And then Team Flash pulls up, and they get to action. Bart throwing ninja stars, getting a 5-piece, Nora using her lasso just to go band for band with Bart, the Speed Force snapping, getting an instant 5-piece, Jay using his helmet. Bro, you are not Captain America. That flick was hard though. And Barry and Iris are back to back. Barry takes out 7, and Iris takes out the last 4. But then everyone starts tweaking, including the Godspeeds, and that's because they're feeding off the Speed Force, so she had to get Ghost. But now Team Flash is surrounded. But then Allergy pulls up, and she has the device, and she cranks it to the max, knocking out all the Godspeeds. But there's still more terrorizing the city, and with no other option, Flash decides to give Hart organic speed. They begin the process, and Hart starts tweaking, and then he hits the dash. But apparently, Flash planned for this, and he chases after Hart. We take a look at Hart, and he calls forth all his clones, and then Flash pulls up, and Godspeed books it. Barry follows, but he's getting blown out, and then he gets speared, and then Hart starts spamming and stealing Flash's speed. But then he gets hit from the back by Wally? No, the reverse Flash. Thawne. Godspeed gets up, saying all that jumping is not gonna help them, and then he reaches his hand to the sky, summoning a sword. Ayo, bro, we can do that? And these boys bring out swords of their own. Bro, what is the meaning of this? Star Wars must have been going crazy at this time, but these boys start sword fighting. Peep the block by Godspeed. That was cold. And then these boys start unloading on Godspeed, but like Godspeed said earlier, that jumping does not work. He gets Thawne out the way and hits a 180 flip. I don't know if all that was necessary, but it was fire. And they start using super speed to only switch locations. But back to level 0, Thawne gets kicked away, and Barry and Godspeed are now in a grab clash, but Hart uses his sonic wave attack, knocking Barry down. He turns around and he gets stabbed by Thawne, and Thawne is looking Godspeed dead in the eyes. I hope Bart was watching that. Barry checks on Hart, and he's still alive, but now it's just Thawne and Barry. Barry tells Thawne to walk away, but you know Thawne is not going for that. He swings on Barry, And Barry is now in flash time, and he throws Thawne. Hadman's appalled. Thawne, not knowing what just happened, starts questioning Barry.
I created you. I taught you everything you know. Everything you are is because of me. What did you do?
I got faster. Didn't you?
Bro, that's a bar. Thawne had no choice but to hit the dash. The biggest hater of all time, the Reverse Flash. The man who dedicated his life to ruining Barry Allen's life. From killing Barry as a kid, to making Barry ask him to kill his mother.
I need you to kill my mother.
With pleasure.
There's no one that comes close to Reverse Flash. But how do you stop someone like this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to find out as we watch the Flash and Arrow jump Reverse Flash. We get a look at Team Flash, and they're brainstorming ways to stop Reverse Flash. But then the particle accelerator goes off, and they realize Reverse Flash is in the building. They go to check it out, and Cisco's soda starts floating, and that means Reverse Flash is near. And then Reverse Flash runs right past them, and you already know Barry goes in for smoke. We get a look at Cisco, and then an announcement goes off saying prisoner release. And we see the teleporter girl is now free. And the first thing she does is charges in straight for a fade, putting the beats on Mr. West and Cisco. And then we see Caitlin pull up. She sees the criminal and she immediately hits the dash. And I don't blame her. Imagine trying to fight someone that's using constant instant transmission. I'd run away too. Caitlin's hitting the dash, and then the criminal teleports right in front of her and she smacks Caitlin. Oh nah, she's lucky I wasn't there, or I would have got smacked too. I'm not gonna lie, but it's the effort that counts. He then proceeds to kick Caitlin while she's down, but that's not all, because she picks Caitlin up, throws her into a wall, and just for style points, she starts choking Caitlin out with her foot. And then we see she's pointing the Glock at Caitlin. Iris comes from behind, and she did her how Kazutora did Mikey's brother. We then see the Flash and Reverse Flash, and they're racing around the city. Barry reaches out his hand, trying to grab Reverse Flash, but Reverse Flash says, "Keep your dirty fingers away from me," and speed blitz off, successfully getting away from Barry. Barry then goes back to headquarters, and Team Flash is back to square one, but actually they're not, because they find this experiment thing that Reverse Flash was working on, and they use that to determine Reverse Flash will be back in 36 hours. Fast forward 36 hours, and guess who pulls up? And he's not even trying to hide his pull up. Man's just walked up like he owns the place. I mean, technically he does, but like, you know what I mean. Barry goes out to greet Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash says, "You can't beat me alone." And then Firestorm pulls up, and Reverse Flash finds that amusing, that Barry thinks a human lighter will help him defeat him. And then we hear an arrow come flying in, and guess who pulls up grappling in? The man who became someone else, the man who became something else, and it's Oliver Queen, the GOAT, Green Arrow. Now, I don't know what he's going to do against a speedster, but just having him here boosts the team morale. And look at Barry, man's just feeling himself. All that doubt he once had, it's gone. But Reverse Flash doesn't seem worried, and actually, he thinks it's gonna be fun. Reverse Flash starts flexing his ring, and y'all already know what that means. Firestorm starts heating up, Flash starts locking in, and oh my gosh, bro, I can promise you I am not trying to glaze, but look at how Ollie drew that bow. He drew that bow with pure confidence, even though his opponent is the Reverse Flash. Ollie does not care about who you are or what you are, and this is the big difference between a great hero like him and a loser like Aquaman. Reverse Flash and Barry then charge at each other. They start running in circles, and I wonder what this looks like from their point of view. Do they see it as playing Duck Duck Goose? We then see that Ollie has his bow pointed, and he's telling Barry to move, but Barry can't move because Reverse Flash pins Barry down, and he's choking him. We then see Firestorm make a move to the sky, and I have no idea what he's planning, but all I know is that it must be dangerous because Reverse Flash throws Barry away, and while Reverse Flash is distracted by Firestorm, Ollie shoots him in the leg. And just so you guys know, Ollie is the only one here with no powers, but yet he was the first one to get a hit in. We then see Firestorm crashing down, but the Reverse Flash turns his hands into tornadoes, and he blows Firestorm away. Flash sees this, and he goes to chase Firestorm, and now it's just Ollie and the Reverse Flash. And then we find out the arrow that Ollie shot him with was full of nanites, courtesy of Ray Palmer, and those nanites are disabling Reverse Flash's speed. And now we get to see the Reverse Flash can actually box, or was he just getting carried by his powers? Reverse Flash runs in, weaving Ollie's punch. Ollie had to remind him it's not sweet over here, and he hits Reverse Flash with a 3-piece. Ollie then starts feeling himself as he hits a 360 into a leg attack, but Wells is not gonna go out like that, and he starts getting some hits in, but Ollie shuts that up real quick because Ollie gets up and hits Wells with his bow, and then he does a 360 finishing move that knocks Reverse Flash into some barricades. We check up on Barry, and we see he safely caught Firestorm, and they get ready to go back into the fight. Back to Ollie and the Reverse Flash? Reverse Flash is using a metal pole. But did he really think that would be enough to stop the GOAT? This man Ollie has been up against guns and swords. What did he think that metal pole was gonna do? Ollie grabs the pole and starts piecing Wells up. And look at these combos. These combos are magnificent. And then Ollie throws Wells to the ground. And we see Wells starts to vibrate. Ollie grabs his bow and he aims it, ready to end this. But the Reverse Flash regains his speed and he grabs Ollie. And we see he has Ollie pinned down, ready to put his hand through his chest. But Barry comes in, saving Oliver. And I seen some people say that this was plot armor. This was not plot armor. Y'all want to know what was plot armor? The Reverse Flash getting his speed back at the perfect moment. Back to Reverse Flash and Barry. We see Barry Sitman's rolling, and then they start running around the roof of Star Labs. And I love it when they do stuff like this, man, because it looks so good. Reverse Flash is chasing Barry, but this was all a part of Barry's plan because Firestorm comes in and he pushes Reverse Flash off the building, sending him crash landing into a car. But do they really think that would be enough to stop the Reverse Flash? Reverse Flash starts getting up and then he gets shot in the back by Oliver Queen. And look at how Ollie's standing. If this does not tell you that he's the GOAT, then I don't know what will. Barry and Firestorm pull up, and the first thing Ollie says is, "I might need a favor from you," before taking his leave. And Barry is geeked right now. He finally caught the man that ruined his life. And although Reverse Flash is a Flash villain, Ollie was definitely MVP. And by the way, guys, please follow my Instagram because I will be uploading sneak peeks of current videos I am working on. And I really want to hit 10 followers. All jokes aside, if you guys did enjoy this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Peace.